Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hectic Homestead. On this episode, we're going to be finishing up this goat shack here, show you guys my thoughts on that and how I went about building ours. Also, we'll go over a couple other updates in the goat pen here. So, stick around, stay tuned till the end so you don't miss anything, and let's get to work. Okay, I'll let you guys enjoy these goats while I talk about this goat shack. I already started it. I did not get the camera out whenever I did start it, but I ended up using landscaping timbers. I ended up making the back wall 8 foot long, and I just used what scrap wood I had to determine the height. I ended up using 5-inch spikes to secure it. I built the back wall first, as you can see, and then carried that into the goat pen, and then assembled the right side, the front, and then the left side last, as you can see coming here. So here's the goat shack at this point, using landscaping timbers. Had a stack of them that was given to me, as either I used them or perfectly good material would have just been tossed in the trash. So this thing here should be pretty beefy and should last a long time for these goats. So we're going to finish it up today, hopefully, get the roof on, get the goats moved out of the barn. Now there are some things you need to think about whenever starting your goat shack. The size, what size do you want? How many goats do you have? You want to make sure there's enough room for them to get in there comfortably without being on top of each other. But at the same time, you don't want it so big that in the winter time or colder months, their body heat escapes, or it's too big of an area for their body heat to warm up and keep them comfortable. Another thing, how tall do you want it? Do you want to have to be hunched over whenever you're going in to clean it out? Does that matter to you? You don't want to have a short dog house style where you have to crouch in there and clean it all out on your hands and knees. This one here I'll have to hunch down a little bit, but that's okay. And also you want it a height that the goats cannot jump onto, or if you don't care if they jump up onto it, which they most likely will, make sure you make the roof out of something solid. On this one here, we're going to frame it in with 2x4s, and looking at the goats, they're getting in my wagon. I already spilled all my screws over. But anyway, this one we're going to frame in with 2x4 or possibly 2x6. I'll see what scrap I have left in the barn and see what is going to be best for that, you know, as far as how much material I have. And then I have some scrap OSB and some plywood in the barn that I'm going to lay over top of that, and then metal roofing. I have a few scrap pieces laying back in the woods that I'm going to lay over top of that. So if the goats get up there, they're not going to ding up the metal roof. It's going to be nice and solid for them. Well, that didn't last long. The goats knocked over the camera. So, take two. back and throw another nail on either side. That way there's two on either side holding it in. These 5-inchers are a pain in the butt. As you see, there's a gap there. Does that matter? It's a little goat shack. I may fill it in later. Who knows? In the wintertime, the wind comes from the back here and will hit the back, so that's why I laid it in that direction. That way at least this side was blocked from the wind. In between the timbers, there is a little gap between every one, as you can probably see. I will do something before winter gets here to seal them up, even if it's putting a piece of plywood on the inside just to make a solid wall. But now to figure out the roofing. I'll wait to fill out the rest of the front until I get the roof framed up and around the back here. And I might even leave it open for the summer just to vent it out. But yeah, let's see what we can come up with for the roof. So after checking out the stack of lumber I have back here, I ended up coming up with these 2x6s. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little shorty over there. Maybe we can use it somewhere. This is what we're going to use for the roof. So with the 2x6, this is what I'm looking at for the angle on the roof here. I think that looks good. Measured it out. A 2x10 will slide under here to seal it off for winter time. I think I'll leave it open in the summer just to, make sure it's vented properly. And then up in the front here, maybe overhang it. I'll have to measure the scrap metal and see what I have and overhang this as much as I can in the front. I'll have to close off the sides here. I don't have any more timbers. So as you can see in the front here, I just used some other 2x6s that were laying in the barn and started filling it in. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a goat shack, and that's what makes these things cool. You can build it how you want. Imperfections don't matter. The goats don't care. And I'm not really out to please anybody. I'm just here to make my animals happy and not go broke doing it. So here's our metal. This was actually used on an old chicken coop that was laying back here in the woods. As you can see, we have a white, a tan, and a red piece there. Let's spread them out and see which one's the shortest. Okay, definitely the white one is the shortest. So let's measure how long that bad boy is. Hopefully it's long enough to give us a decent overhang in the front. If not, we'll make the overhang shorter in the back. Just shy of 7 feet. So, yeah, none of this has to be completely accurate. And I'm hoping that 3 of these side by side will be enough. They overlap a little bit. So I'll actually do a measurement from the inside here. 3 foot. So they're 3 foot wide, and our timbers are 8 foot long. So we know we have plenty to make it from one side to the other. So we'll leave that metal there. No sense carrying it over, getting it in the way, and the goats will play on it anyway. And we'll get this roof framed in, then go grab that metal and get her done. Okay, so we have all of our wood over here. Switch sides. What we're going to do now is just make sure we have squared up ends. You can see there's nails in the ends. They are all used boards, so we're just recycling them. No sense letting them go to waste and paying for lumber whenever we have some here. So go ahead and cut off the ends here where the screws are, or the nails are, and make sure we have square edges. We're going to measure out. We know our metal's just under 7 feet, so we're going to maybe cut 6'10". So let's get to it. picking my scraps up as I go and just sitting them on the outside of the fence. That way I don't have to worry about a goat coming over whenever I'm not paying attention and getting a nail in the hoof. So now on to the other side. We're going to measure out 6 foot 10 inches. Actually, it's going to be less than that. Let's think about this. The 2x is 1.5 inches thick. So if we did 6 and 10 inches, add 1.5 inches on the front, 1.5 inches on the back, that gives us 7 feet 1 inch. We don't need that. That's going to be longer than our metal. So let's go 6'10" minus 3. So 6'7" with our front board and back board adds 3. That brings us out to 6'10". Let's do that. So a pro tip, when you're trying to cut something to length and you don't want to have to measure out your line, mark it, and then follow your line, and you want to ensure a square cut, measure your saw. Measure the distance from the edge here to your blade. That way you can just throw your square up on your 2x, butt it up next to it, rip that cut. So what we're going to do is measure 6 foot 5.5 inches to make up for the difference in the guard on the saw. That way whenever I throw my square up on 6 5.5 and I cut it, we add 1.5 inches on my saw. Measure yours, make sure it's the same. Make sure your saw is not plugged in or like me with a battery in it. But anyway, you'll make that cut and it'll be a perfectly square cut right at 6 foot 7 inches. So, you see my mark here. We're going to go ahead and put the square on the mark. As you can see, when I throw the saw up, the blade is back here. You're going to go ahead and start the cut. Make sure you hold your fingers out of the way, hold it firmly. Get that board stabilized. So let's measure our board. We're looking for 6 foot 7. Six foot 7. Now let's get to placing them out. We won't worry about our front and back board yet, but they will be coming. So after getting the pieces we cut off out of the pen so the goats don't step on them, I'm happy with how it looks. Should be plenty of room as far as the overhang goes. I'm actually thinking of cutting the front post down. What do you think? Should I cut it down? I'm liking that a little bit better. In case you're wondering, I just put this board up here to hold my corner on the end here, as there's nothing holding it across the bottom. So that was to hold the board as I was nailing them timbers in. Yeah, I'm thinking, let's cut it down some more.